Right, so good afternoon. My name is Sunil Naik. I come in from DHL Global Forwarding. It's coincidental that we are sitting like this, but we started off with Tejas, who comes in from what I believe is more prone towards manufacturing. And then I have got Rajneesh, who comes from somebody who is more in the B2C space, right? Somebody who is working in a, maybe your quintessential services kind of a space. And I come in a place which is in between, right? I think Shashank, you stole my thunder, right? When you said that when you are actually going ahead and working in the hot sun, if there is a role, for example, we work in actually moving stuff, moving material from one place to another. And it goes through an airport, a seaport, somebody has to load the container. Now, unfortunately, I can't have that person working from home. That person has to work there, right? He has to wear his safety shoes, his helmet, his haz vest and work. Now, the challenge that we are facing is that our generation, that is when you talk about, let me not name anybody else. When you talk about me, all right, I come from a generation which very much like what Tejas had mentioned, started off in a different world, right? So for me, when I speak about work, for me work is in office. For me work is 9 to 5 and I want them to come in there. What happened during the pandemic actually accelerated this change. So the 4 points that Tejas had mentioned makes a lot of sense and it is going to change. The speed at which it changed due to the pandemic sort of just accelerated. If you had asked me or any of my managers in 2019, do you foresee that 50% of your people working on operations at the back office could work from Himachal Pradesh, from Ranchi, and not at the corporate office or at the station in Delhi? I could guarantee you that everybody would have said, no, it doesn't work. Systems won't support, we can't handle it. But then COVID happened. And post-COVID, that shift has happened. Right? So if I look at the way in which work is changing, we as organizations, we speak to our employees and teams and new joiners, students, professionals like you, that you need to change. I think what COVID taught organizations is that organizations also need to change with the times. And I think that's the biggest shift that I can see right now. Yeah? And that shift that's happening is making new ways in which, or avenues to work. So you've got smart cities that are coming up. You have an opportunity for people to work from home. Technology allows us to connect. You've got systems that are available which work on the cloud. So right now, I don't even need a system which is mine. You know, bring your own. There's something called BYOD. In college, we would know something called BYOB. I don't know what, you know what BYOD stands for? Bring your own device. In college, it would be bring your own bottle. Yeah. So when you go ahead and have your own device, this application is on the cloud. And I can go ahead and run it from wherever I'm based out. I just need the technology space, right? If I can get connectivity, I'll be able to run it. Now, that is creating a new ecosystem and allowing people to work in what could potentially be called the gig economy, where you can have people that are being employed only for their specialization. And that could actually help or assist what Rajneesh mentioned, right? Saying that, listen, I am being picked up for what I like to do. And I will work for X, Y, Z, A, B, C, D at my time. And then I have a better balance. I'm able to spend time at home. I'm able to do whatever is required. So that's a shift that we are also looking at. So I think, Dr. Singh, you mentioned diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? I think the fourth aspect is also very, very important, because if I'm working from various spaces, I'm unable to go ahead and build culture. Nobody knows what the organizational culture is, because we are all based in different locations. So I think the B is also very important, which is belongingness. So can we go ahead and get people to work together is going to be something that we'll have to look at as organizations. So workspace change, the speed of change that is happening, we need to go ahead and get ready with it. And I don't see, long service awards. In the past, long service awards was something that people actually gave a lot of credit to, saying 15 years, 30 years. I don't know if that would be something that we continue to drive in the future, because we might not have people working with us, and that's no longer a criteria, right? Unless it's a very niche technical skill, we'll have, because the skill itself has changed. We used to work with a system called Ice Gate. Now Ice Gate is no longer there. So what's the knowledge for the new technology that we need to bring? So things are changing. We need to work with the times, and if we don't change, I think as organizations, this Gen Z will make us change. And I think that's the way we need to look at it. One, there's a very famous quote which says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Right? So if you look at an organization, you join an organization that is successful. I want to be successful. I want the organization to be successful, right? And we are always looking at what the organization is doing, what their plans are for the next 5 years, what are their plans for the next 10 years, how are they planning their growth strategy, and so on and so forth. Normally these strategies, if you look at it, are driven by people. And everything else is more or less constant. Material, machine, money, available. Any organization can get it. In spite of that, there are some organizations that really succeed. And there are some organizations that in spite of the best plans cannot succeed. And that difference comes from culture. So if you look at DHL, DHL has a statement that says connecting people, improving lives. That's it. That's what we mentioned. And it's something that's very simple. I like the way in which you mentioned, you're saying that, we need to ensure that we go ahead and move forward, right? Moving people forward. That's the way it is coming out, isn't it? It's something that you do, making Indian food global, right? Something that's simple, easy for people to understand. And how do I imbibe that culture in people? So how do I connect with whatever I do? When I say connecting people and improving lives, am I connecting people in different ecosystems? As logisticians, I open up a market for people to sell. I give opportunities for new people to work in logistics in various cities or countries. I also give opportunities to people in our teams to go ahead and do better. Rotation of jobs, new opportunities. How many of you know what freight forwarding means? Right. So,
Sunil, you can explain.
It's a big story, right? Moving things globally is what freight forwarding can be simply put as, right? But it has exports, imports, customs clearance, right? There's so many things that are there inside, right? And you will get to know about it when you join, right? So when I say connecting people and improving lives, here's an opportunity for somebody to join an organization in freight forwarding, learn a trade, right? You would have all learned carpentry. Any engineers? I'm sure there'll be a few, or these are all MBA, HR.
Right? A few of them have earlier qualification of engineering.
Yeah, so the earlier qualification of engineers, first year you would have had carpentry. If I ask you to build a door, would you be able to build a door? A door. Carpentry, no? Basic carpentry tools I know. I do my first year and one of the subjects is carpentry, but I wouldn't know how to build a door because I don't have the practice to it. Right? And I think sometimes this is the kind of things that you get when you work in an organization and build that trade. So for that to build, you need to have the right culture, get people to go ahead and get in and work. The second important aspect is the ESG that I think Dr. Singh you had mentioned as well, right? So if you look at how can I connect what we do to all the three, right? What do I do in terms of governance? What do I do in terms of sustainability? What am I doing in terms of environment? Because if you look at the youth as of now, they are interested in knowing what they can also do. We sometimes misinterpret this as people who question too much, ask a lot of questions, inquire a bit more than what the general purpose of the role is, right? But the reason is because they want that larger connect. And if we are able to provide that, that helps in terms of building the right kind of culture. And while you said, organizations and survey reports are questionable, a good one that I've seen is where they go ahead and connect engaged employees to business performance. And can you guess what the percentage increases? If you have got a survey that is done in an organization that says people are engaged, they feel that they belong to the organization, versus a set of people who say we are not a part of the organization. Can you imagine what the business outcome improvement is? 100% is too optimistic, but still it's pretty big. 23%. Increasing your margins by 23% is not easy, right? And the margins are going up by 23% because of engaged employees who believe and want to belong to your culture. Now, we need to drive that, and that's where, at least as HR, it's important for us to go ahead and ensure that we know what our culture is, align whatever we are doing to it, and ensure that we communicate this and make people aware of it. Any automation or digitization will lead to simplification. It's something that helps in terms of simplifying work, right? Whatever we do, if we are able to go about freeing a lot of time, Rajneesh, like you mentioned, it allows you to go ahead and specialize or provide your core expertise rather than making data entry, sifting through the same numbers again and again. So just taking a sort of a segue into what you mentioned, Rajneesh, we have an HR bot, because what we realized was that out of those 2,000 odd queries that they would have got, almost close to 1,600 would be very simple, repeated queries. So, for example, what are my leave rules? Where do I apply for leave? My attendance has a challenge. Now, if you can use machine learning to go ahead and create a bot that can respond to this with an X number of answers that are already provided, it takes care of 80% of the time. Then the balance 20, each time they ask and it is not answered by the standard queries, it gets escalated to an HR. The HR puts the response in, and your tool or the bot becomes more and more powerful. So right now, in the last year, we have actually launched a bot called HR Coolian, working on the play Herculean. We've got them to go ahead and respond, and we've got now almost close to 18 to 19,000 lines of query answers that are allowing us to take care of almost 90% of the queries. So this allows people to feel more happy, because I get a very clear tat for response, and if it is not being responded, it goes up to the next, it escalates up to the next level and it gets responded to. And second, people are comfortable working with technology. I think that's something that we tend to sometimes believe, as HR, how much of technology can we put in? That people connect is important. Yes, people connect is important, but if you can simplify many of your routine administrative tasks, that allows you to connect to the right set of people, allows you to spend time in the right place. The second important aspect that I wanted to speak about was, we have lead indicators and lag indicators. That is something that you do after the event. So I currently analyze a lot of my attrition. The person has left. I can't do anything with it. Now, can I prevent the person from leaving? If I can, that is predictive analytics. And we need to use data for predictive analytics. How can I start working on the data that gives out some red flag? Maybe people are not onto the system. They are not going ahead and responding to a survey. They have not filled in their responses for performance management on time. This should automatically get collated, and it can come up and say, hey, listen, as HR, you need to speak to this person. Try and connect and find out what's happened. Why is this person who used to normally do it on time, suddenly, why is his responses dropped? Now that's predictive analytics, and that's something where we see data-driven technology really helping. The second important aspect in L&D is in augmented reality. So assuming you want to get trained, right? And we have got stores, we have got warehouses where things are kept, where I don't know what this product is. And I need to go ahead and check for all the data. So you've got augmented reality goggles that you wear, and you go ahead and just point at it. It will tell you exactly what the product is, which is the SKU number, does it need to be used. Suddenly I'm using this for training. I'm using this to train people in real time so that they're able to go ahead and benefit from it rather than waiting for it later. That's again a technology aspect. Third simple thing that we saw for technology related to people was assisted. It reminds me of those Transformer movies, right? Where you have people who are doing picking, right? Have you been to a warehouse? Any of you seen a warehouse? In a warehouse, there's a lot of physical labor. I need to pick something up, put into a bin. I need to go back. My back and my legs really start paining after a while. And they normally work for long hours. 4 hours, 6 hours are their timings, right? Now, if you are able to give them something called an exoskeleton actually assists them to go ahead and pick without straining their back. Suddenly now you are actually improving service levels, you're reducing fatigue for the person, and the employee starts feeling happier. Yeah. So technology and ability to handle from a data aspect is very, very important. Plus, even other aspects also I see technology really helping us to go ahead and simplify and free up a lot of time. Employability, right? I think employability is a challenge now because whatever the students are learning and coming, is that what is required? I think that's something that all institutions also need to look for, because if you can provide the right inputs, then the skill sets become relevant. And that is where you need that interaction between corporates and institutions and organizations, etc., where we can actually understand what will work. The second part is that I also heard Dr. Singh mentioning how in 2023 you will have a lot of jobs that get moved out. And I think it's true, right? When we speak about AI taking away a lot of jobs, they will. But what's the difference is, that is the jobs that were relevant 10 years back. Now those jobs are going to go. Now if I believe that I'm going to continue to do the same thing that I did 10 years back, that's not working. So we have got container yards, right? So there is a job where a person on a cycle used to go around, draw a grid on a paper and mark out which container was in which grid. That job is gone. And it's been replaced by RFID trackers. Now, will I get that same job? No. So my skill that I required was to go ahead and know how to write and know how to cycle. Now, if I don't reskill and I assume that I'm going to get a job with the same knowledge of riding a cycle and drawing on a piece of paper, then I'm fooling myself. So I think that's what we need to know. What is required in the new age is what we need to start looking at, and we need to start learning about it. And Rajneesh, you are absolutely right. We don't know what's coming, so we need to keep on learning. So I think this age of saying, listen, I'm not going to learn anymore is gone. You need to step up. You need to go ahead and learn something. I need to learn something even now. There's no way that I can go ahead and say, listen, I know enough. I don't know enough. There's a lot more that we need to do. The other shift that I see is from basic logic. I think you will have machines, robots doing basic logical work far more efficiently and better than any human. What's going to happen is you will need to look at more areas with creativity. Things like design thinking. Those are the areas, data analytics, those are the areas that you'll have to look at. Not working on the data, but understanding what to do with the data and why are you doing it. I think that's what you need to learn more than actually knowing what to do with the data. So those are the areas that I see, and that speed of change is tremendous, right? It took 50 years to move from radio to television. It took 5 years to move from television to the internet. And we work with NCR, sir. ATMs are no longer there. Their businesses are dropping. Nobody goes to the ATM with UPI and all those new tools coming in. Nobody is interested in ATMs anymore. Yeah, so the pace of change is changing so fast that you have to reskill yourself. I think the advantage that you have is most organizations are now giving flexible work arrangement. They allow you to choose. The choice is yours. And I think like what both of them have been saying, people now are choosing to come back. Right? So they are happy to work there, but since they are social, we are all social beings. Right? And if you look at offices, our offices have changed now. Initially you had cubicles, designated areas. Now you have got more collaborative spaces, shared work cubicles where you are allowed to go in and choose. Have you seen parking in malls? You have seen those green and red lights. If you have a car parked, it becomes red. Now that's happening in offices. So you have got a table and a chair, it has a light. It is green when nobody is occupying it. If somebody is occupied, it has become red. That means somebody is using it. There's no space for you there. And interestingly, over the last, we do a survey every 6 months to try and understand, would you like to work from home or would you like to work from office, right? We started off with around 70% wanting to work from home in July of 2020. Right now, we have got 38% who still want to work from home and they're free to use it. In our flexible work arrangement, we want them to come to office 1 day in a week. That's it. 6 days work from beach. 1 day come to office. Yeah? Can you imagine how many people come to office? I think the point that both of them are saying, he spoke about the water cooler chat and he spoke about how we are social. They want to meet people. And the feedback is that I don't know what's happening. I don't know if somebody is getting recognized for something. And I want to come back into office. So we currently have close to 70% of people coming to office, where we are telling them, go back home. I think very similar to what he's saying, I don't want you to hear. Please work from home. They say, no, connect. Any of you from Mumbai? Anybody from Mumbai? Anybody from a larger metro where space is a constraint? Yeah.
Kolkata.
Yeah, Kolkata, right? So imagine working from home, spouse, 2 children, one Wi-Fi connectivity. All right? There's one room. We've had instances where the children are facing one wall, the spouse is facing another wall, my team member is sitting here. All of them are on calls, connectivity is dropping, they are unable to go in and concentrate on what is required. We have had instances where people have gone out with the laptop. See, an internship program, think about it like a trailer, right? Wherein you get to know a little bit more about the organization, the functions, the industry, what's happening and what is expected, right? Most of you would be freshers. Most of you might not have an opportunity to interact in an organizational setting, and this gives you that opportunity. We normally go ahead and explain to an intern that they need to be like a sponge. A sponge absorbs, right? So you need to turn up. You need to ensure that you ask questions. You need to go ahead and respond to whatever is required and try and see how you can deliver. So you have a very short time span. So if you have got an internship for 2 months, you will normally be doing an internship maybe in a location that's not your home location, right? So you will spend around a week acclimatizing. How do I get to office? What do I do there? How do I reach out to people? Second, you will have to go ahead and understand the office. Who's the person that I need to speak to? Where do I get the information from? And then you have got maybe 3 to 4 weeks where you are actually going to deliver on or deploy whatever you've learned. So don't be mistaken by the fact that, listen, I've got 2 months, there's a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time, right? So you have those 4 weeks where you can actually deliver. And then afterwards, you will be busy with your project reports, trying to go ahead and, sort of summarize everything up and then go back home, right? So you have, out of those 8 weeks, only 4 weeks for you to deliver. So in those 4 weeks, we expect you to go ahead and have a clear idea of whatever is needed. You will be in a particular function, right? So it could be marketing, HR, finance, sales, operations. So whichever function it is, what is the necessity of that particular function and what is expected out of you? Ensure that you're taking something relevant and something that will allow you to learn, right? So it's a mutually beneficial exercise. Don't get into a internship where you just go for the tag, where great organization, but I don't know what I'm doing for the internship, right? Please don't do that. Or take an internship where you will be able to deliver something of value to the organization, and in turn the organization can deliver you value. Because in the future, it's a great opportunity for you to talk about it. Talk about what you have done. Don't look at it as a data entry, chat GPT and slide GPT. Don't do that. It doesn't make sense. That's already available. Use that time wisely to go about completing whatever assignments that have been provided. Ask questions, absorb, understand what's happening in an organization, what's happening in the function, and what the deliverables are.